In this episode of Performance Anxiety, we talk to Drunken Prayer's Morgan Geer. We learn about his new album, There's an Ape Man in Bluemont, and When Is It Bow Time? Follow Drunken Prayer on social media. Follow us, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. Buy things at www.performanceanx.threadless.com. Enjoy Drunken Prayer.
You want me to start with like a hi, this is, or just I'm? Okay. I'm Morgan Geer, Drunken Prayer, and I'm high on performance anxiety.
Love it.
I think maybe that's good.
I think that's enough.
I got some expensive earbuds that don't work for damn.
Oh, nice, yeah. You know, I've got these cheap ones that actually work pretty darn good so far. So now these are like mid-range. So,
well, my wife took my good headphones because she's interviewing somebody completely different tonight on my little Zoom recorder.
Oh man!
I was like, sure, you can take those. I was like, man, I like to be able to hear it because anyway, no big deal.
Yeah, it just keeps the outside noise out and helps keep you focused a little bit.
Yeah, kind of like there's kind of a tunnel vision that goes along with it. But
yeah.
No harm.
So does your wife, does she do a lot of interviews?
No, not really. She works for a natural products brokerage, and is kind of like in charge of their sales team.
Ah, okay.
And so every once in a while, she'll be in charge of. She'll do videos. She's a kind of a gifted photographer. Oh, nice. So she'll do their videos and the photography. And this time it came with an interview. So I gave her a quick, those little Zoom handheld.
Yeah,
love them. But it's got a minor learning curve on it. Mainly, it's the interface is kind of like janky.
I thought about getting one. So if artists come into town, I can bring it instead of trying to bring my whole setup here. 'Cause right now I've got the phone plugged into a soundboard that goes into my laptop and a headphone amp, and it's this whole big setup, and I can't really take that if I'm going to go talk to somebody on location.
I know what you mean. It's the exact same kind of issues you go through when doing any home recording. Like what's being recorded, it doesn't matter. I do the same thing because I had this one record, The House of Morgan, that was done almost entirely from my desk.
Oh wow!
And it was all just like this. And I'm not an engineer, so it's this crazy just snake nest of redundancy.
Yep. I'm the same way. I just kind of fell into this, and I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, this thing's got like 150 knobs on it, and I don't know what all but like 4 of them do.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like thankfully all you need is 2 voices to come out and keep it out of the red.
Exactly. Oh, and I almost screwed that up just a few minutes ago because I was deleting some test files that I had from a long time ago when I first started using the software that I'm using. And I'm calling you, and I noticed my gain, the fader gain on my input here on the software was like way up in the red. I'm like, oh shit! I'm glad I caught that because otherwise,
yeah, it's easy. You wouldn't know it until you got back to it. I mean, it's like, what the fuck is this?
I did. Oh my gosh! I'll tell you a funny story real fast. When I first started doing, I do like I was telling you this morning. I do another podcast. It's a sports show. And we started with a local DC show. It was just me, my buddy Mike, and a couple other guys. A guy who used to play for the Redskins was a co-host, and we would do a weekly show about DC sports, and the local ESPN affiliate picked it up. So I had to kind of learn real fast on the fly because nobody else wanted to figure. They all wanted to do the show, but nobody wanted to figure out how everything worked.
How to do the show.
Exactly. Right. So we got all the equipment we borrowed equipment from this guy, and we were using my friend's computer to record it. So he had this other software that he was using. Well, he left the show, and all right, so the ESPN affiliate got sold. Our podcast got dropped, and we started doing another one with 2 friends out in LA, and it was more comedy and sports than actual sports. So after I'd say 8 months or so, my friend got too busy at work and he couldn't do that anymore. So it just kind of became the 3 of us, me and my 2 buddies out in LA. And so I had to find software to work this. So I started using this software, but I also started doing the podcast that I'm doing with you right now around the same time. And the first, I recorded like 2 or 3 real fast in a row before I had a chance to edit anything. And I realized when I went and listened back that apparently there's a noise gate on there that's built in. And anytime me or the person I was talking to would step back from the mic a little bit, it just clipped it right off.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I had Steve Turner from Mudhoney on. I had I had Robert Roth from the band Truly. He played with Nirvana for a little bit. Just kind of jammed with him. And I had Kelly Scott from Failure. And,
really?
Yeah, and a buddy of mine named Jordan. Jordan's he is the band Blinker the Star, and they were on together because they're good friends. So those 3 I recorded like back to back to back, and every single one of them went from like an hour-long show to like 30 to 40 minutes because I had to edit it so much because everything got clipped so badly.
Oh man, that's it's one thing doing what you do, like doing that when I'm working purely with music is completely different than an interview thing because you're getting out information. For me, it's funny because my first reaction was like, "Oh, cool! You have some boundaries to work with." It's like, "Oh, great! That's great." I kind of look for ghosts in the machine sometimes, but then I was like, "Oh no, there might have been some information in there that could have been used." Yeah,
And I can't call him back and say, "Hey, remember that interview we did last week? Can we redo it?" Because I screwed everything up.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're a buddy of yours, I could see it being kind of like, well,
yeah.
Well,
it's funny. Oh, it's funny because I actually did that. The second one, I'll spill a few more beans here. When I did the second one I did with Robert Roth, I started talking to him, and we got like 10 minutes in, and I realized I had never hit the record button. Like, oh shit! Which
has got to be like probably 1, the most common mistake. 2, the most embarrassing.
Yeah. I did. I had to stop a mid sentence. I'm like, Robert, hey, I don't know, something's wrong with the software. It just closed down. It just shut down on me. I don't know what's going on. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, all right, well, that's good. That'll give me a few more. Let's do it in like 2 or 3 days. Call me back next week and we'll redo it. He's like, that'll give me more time to think of some more stories for you.
Perfect.
Okay.
That worked out. Well, the nice thing about these days is you can blame it on software. And in a way, you're not wrong.
No, exactly.
Software was not working. Because it wasn't engaged.
Because I got flustered early and forgot to hit the one button I had to hit.
That's funny as hell. Well, we'll know if this one goes tits up. I'll like, okay.
I might be able to call back and like, hey, can we redo a part of
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. I love.
Oh man, so that's part of what this show is about. Just weird shit that happens while you're out playing music, whether it's in the studio or live. I really do appreciate you coming on. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while.
Oh, good. Why?
Because I heard the music, and
shit. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with Freakwater, just a little bit. I heard them years ago on. I think it's Bloodshot Records put out a compilation for A Decade of Sin, and they had a song on there, something about being drunk. I don't remember exactly what it was. I got it I got it because I'm a huge fan of 16 Horsepower, David Eugene Edwards, Woven Hand, and they did was it a Gun Club cover or something like that? Derailed, I think they did. 16 Horsepower did, and then and so I listened to the whole thing, and I was picking out bands that I like, and Freakwater was one of them. So how did you get?
That worked out well.
Yeah. So how did you get involved with Freakwater?
It's not too long of a story, but it's weird.
I like those stories.
Well, so I had a really good friend years ago, and we would trade like cassette mixtapes, And one time, she had one that someone had given her, and it was completely unmarked.
Oh boy.
And one of the songs was a Freakwater song that we both loved, but we didn't have any idea who the band was. Oh, and, Google wasn't a thing. And so it was like, well, just keep your eye out if you ever hear it. And the song was My Old Drunk Friend that they do.
Yeah.
My old drunk friend, it's good to see you again. And every time you walk in, I should run the other way. My old drunk friend, you're looking kind of thin.
And whenever we'd always, that was kind of like our thing. It was like, we have this song and it's a mystery and their voices are really weird and the lyrics are really thoughtful and smart. So it meant a lot to us to have this kind of mystery. And so years go by and I'm in Asheville. And whenever I didn't really know anything about like Uncle Tupelo or alternative country or Americana or anything like that. That's not really what I was. I mean, I like country music and I like blues.
Yeah.
But I don't really care about like someone's modern interpretation of that. I appreciate it more now. But so whenever I would run into somebody who was roughly, even remotely knowledgeable of that world, I would ask about this band because it had kind of stuck. Then now it was bothering me. It was like, how? Now I still don't know. It was, and so I started. A guy named David Wayne Gay moved to town, who was a bass player, an interesting guy. And Asheville is a small town, so a bass player moves to town. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
So. And he was in this band that people were just like, oh man, this guy from Freakwater moved to town. It didn't mean anything to me, of course. But I was in a country band, like a honky tonk thing called White Heat, that he was putting together with someone else, or he had put together. And one day we're just sitting in the car about to play. We're like, oh, okay, I'll ask you. You're the next in line.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard a band? I think it's two women, and they have this song about like my drunk friend, and he just started. He thought I was putting them on. It was like, so it's like that's my band, and so I flipped out, and so like skip ahead. He's the bass player on the album before this last one, and that I still play with to this day on a regular basis.
Oh man, that's
so then we all got to be friends, and they're super nice people, of course. And time comes for them to make this album a year and a half ago, and they just asked me to do it, and I was floored. I was texting my friend because we're still in contact. I was like, "You will not believe what band I'm in." It's our mystery band. It's really kind of mind blowing,
That really is. That's one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard.
Isn't it? I mean, like I've got goosebumps now. I guess I've never really told that story from beginning to end. And it's like, that's weird as shit.
That really is. What are the odds of that? I mean, the odds of that have to be astronomical.
What are the fucking odds? Well, and they would even, like the album I played on was the first one they'd done in 10, 12 years or something. So they weren't even a thing. And who knows, who knew? So I was way into doing that album, and it was a real kind of mind fuck the whole time. It was like first time I played with them on stage, I came this close to having a panic attack, which I've never had.
Oh wow!
Because I'd probably gotten a little too baked.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, I was kind of having this existential, just like, what? How did I get here? Because then I started thinking about the odds.
Yeah. All from his little mixtape.
From a mixtape, and yeah.
And now you're on stage.
And now they're just buddies.
That's
just
amazing.
friends. I even kind of forget about that sometimes because it's now today. We've now been friends for years, and I don't really think about that's a weird thing. It's like, oh yeah, they're just my friends. And, we're gonna go swimming or something.
So you're born in San Francisco, is that right?
Yeah. I wasn't there for very long, but I was born there.
And your family's from Alabama.
For the most part, yeah, they're all from around the Gulf Coast, and now they're all mostly around Mobile. We have relatives around Philadelphia, Mississippi, but everybody over the past few generations have all been in around Mobile.
Is it were you guys a musical family?
Yeah, that's kind of the family business beyond something to do with sailing. Is the music? Everybody's played music for generations. We have some, like every family, we have some relatives who are into genealogy, and
oh yeah,
I've gone back and found old receipts for just hundreds of years where they came into town and they got like a sack of flour and rice, a bottle of whiskey, and a single violin string.
Man, that sounds like a great shopping list.
Doesn't it? It's just like, okay, we need that one violin string. Oh, some bourbon.
Some bourbon, flour, and a violin string. We're going to have a party tonight, Ma.
Right, exactly. They probably did. They probably didn't, it went a long way back then. But yeah, it's my mom taught me how to play guitar, and she had really good taste in music, or I still think she does. And she was a folk singer, and around New Orleans and Austin, Texas, when I was little. So those are my earliest memories. And my grandfather, her father, was a Dixieland jazz player. He played anything on his book, and he played up until his death just a few years ago. He was in a band.
Really?
Yeah. So he's kind of a character and a storyteller. And then his parents were both musicians in the opera and the symphony, and then their parents. So it's in my family, it's always been it's an honorable profession as opposed to something you get out of your system.
Yeah.
So there was never any kind of it was always something to aspire to as opposed to kind of keep behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's the weird one in the family. He's in a band.
Yeah, well, and really the hardest challenge I've ever had there interpersonally has been just kind of breaking free of just what they all like and what they're all interested in, because it's basically what you would just call Americana, I guess, but jazz and big band and folk and country and that kind of thing. So like it took me a while to kind of find my own voice, just because my family had such a strong musical tradition. It's hard not to just be a part of the band being your family. You know what I mean? Just like, well, I want to go solo.
Yeah. So is that where the more rock influence in your music comes from? Because your music is it's a really awesome mix of the southern country, but little bit more of the hard rock, like an evolution of outlaw country, maybe.
Yeah, that I was just talking to a friend of mine who's way more knowledgeable than I am about music appreciation. Basically, he's out here doing some carpentry over at the house. We're working together, and he really loves the record. And he I gave him a copy for doing some work. So, he's getting paid. He really loves it, and he was just like, man, this would be like Joe Strummer or Warren Zevon's favorite record if they're around. This would be their.
Oh man!
And we started talking. He's like, that's interesting. He's like, I'm glad you like it. I'm always semi-surprised when people like my music, only because I'm only trying to humor myself, basically. So I knew this was a strong bunch of songs, and so I asked him. I was like, you think people will like this? Because I know it's catchy. A lot of the songs are, but it's also to me it seems real familiar. Someone said it's just like it's like they immediately recognized what's on their plate as a burrito, but they were completely surprised pleasantly when they've been into it. It's like, oh, I've never had a burrito like this.
That like,
that kind of makes sense, Just, it's not John Cale or any like really anything too challenging. I don't think. I mean, maybe lyrically, but it's recognizable as rock and roll. I'm not reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that I loved about everything that I heard was the humor in it. Your lyrics are hilarious, and they seem they're understated, but the humor in it is undeniable. And like,
really?
You got like, all right. So we'll go to a couple of the older songs, like the Mission Field. That's a great track. All right, so that's an older one, but.
Up off of the streets of Slidell. So smile, you're entering the mission field. Now you are entering the mission.
That's the first time I've ever heard Slidell in a song. I don't know anybody who does Slidell in a song.
Well, that was just a true story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Like, always sad. You sleep drunk every night. You reference Elmore James. I think that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. That maybe the second person that's ever noticed that. It hurts me too.
Oh, really?
That reference Elmore James. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I love it. And I love Elmore James. So. And then
yeah,
Four Leaf Clover, Bears Eating Mom and Dad. I mean, that's just that cracked me up.
That one, yeah, that was a funny one to write, just because it was a lot of. I take a lot of notes throughout the day, if something catches my ear or my eye, and so sometimes that one was kind of scattershot, like who was it that would the writer that would take snippets out of other books and then throw them on the ground. I think it was William. His name's I'm forgetting. I'm blanking out right now. And just kind of throw words and phrases around. And so I have a lot of words and phrases. And I had the chorus for this for a long time, and I wasn't really sure where it was going. And I had a lot of extra lyrics sitting around. And so I kind of looked at them and see, do any of these kind of jump out as working with this song in any stretch? And to me, like there is a cohesiveness there, but you have to look for it. Like it tells the story. I'm not sure everyone would say it tells the same story, but yeah, and some of them are just it's just fun.
Oh, they're blessed. Now, and I went digging a little bit in your back catalog, and speaking of senses of humor, and a couple of songs jumped out at me as far as making me laugh my ass off. Like It's Christmas Time.
Oh yeah,
that killed me. The little kid at the end.
It's Christmas time and my sweet baby, ho ho hoing around.
It's Christmas time and my sweet babies, ho ho hoing around.
Singing ho ho hoing around, that destroyed me.
that was me too. When that was such a happy accident because the label I was with, Fluff and Gravy, that's one of their kids, and he loved that song. And they would record it on their phone and send it around to each other. And it was like, oh my god! I was like, man, we got to put him singing at put that on the record.
I was actually at work listening to it, and I started laughing out loud. I had my headphones on, and I'm doing my job, and that happened. I just started laughing, and everybody's looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, I'm listening to Christmas music.
Right, and that's kind of funny to me.
Yeah. And then I ran across this amazing cover from the Unholy Trio, Public Enemy's Bring the Noise.
How low can you go? Death row. What a brother know. Once again, back is the incredible crime animal, the incredible D. Public Enemy number 150 said freeze, and I got numb. Can't tell him that I never really had a gun. It's a wax of the Terminator X-Men. Turn it up.
That
Bring the
is
noise.
amazing. How did you do that?
Well, I mean, we were texting back and forth, but it initially was It's funny being bored. I can remember being bored, kind of standing around in the heat on a football field in high school, and we're just like waiting for whatever was going to happen, Just like, if you've ever gone through summer football camp, a lot of us is kind of bored. So I was just sitting there like making up dumb songs and just cracking up my teammates. How low can you go? Death row, let a brother know. Once again, back is the incredible. And so that kind of stuck with me for years. And then we had a couple of minutes left in the session, and I just started playing it with these guys. It's funny, the bass player on the one you probably heard is the bass player from Freakwater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we were just fucking around. I mean, I never ever expected any. I just was like we should record that version of Bring Noise, and so Bloodshot ends up hearing it somehow. I think because of Freakwater, and put it on one of their compilations. And I was kind of mortified. I mean, of course they asked, and I'm not going to say no because all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so then like we went to South by Southwest that year on the back of that song, and like a couple of years later, I get an email from Chuck D.
Whoa.
Somebody's fucking with me, So I had a buddy of mine help me do like IP lookup and everything on the email address because I didn't want to get my hopes up, or just like, because I was starting to freak out. I was like, is he mad?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want the S1Ws or SW1s coming to get me,
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we looked it up, and sure enough, it was for a magazine that he published. And I was just like, he wanted an MP3. I was like, of course, man. I was so kind of starstruck. It's weird to be starstruck over email.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, the first concert I ever saw was a Public Enemy show.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't tell him. I just kind of wanted to wash my hands of the whole thing as fast as I could before I threw up all over my keyboard. I was like, I always wanted to talk to Chuck D, but I'm not sure it's under these circumstances.
Yeah.
Anyway, it turns out he just wanted to get a copy of it because he thought it was funny as shit.
That's awesome.
It. And then somebody else made a pretty interesting video of it. It was shot on like an unfinished work site with a woman and maybe some, I don't know, some questionable characters.
Is that
doing questions?
Is that the one in black and white?
It looks like a handheld recorder.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a home movie by John Wayne Gacy or something.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
Yeah, I did see that one.
Yeah,
that one was.
This guy, I think his name is Mark Mix out of Austin, Texas.
Oh,
they showed it at South by Southwest. Again, I'm just like, you write all these sincere songs from your heart, and this is one. So be careful what you record, kids.
No kidding. See, humor always wins out.
It worked out, it was as funny as. I got nothing to be ashamed of, I guess.
No, man. I think it's awesome. I loved it.
And I'm glad you do. I was like, what is this? Okay. Am I just an idiot in the world?
I've always wondered about that, too. Like, people will record covers, they'll play them live. And I wonder if you don't get permission. I mean, did you have to get permission for the record company to put it out? I don't even know how that works.
Bloodshot might have, because we did sign a contract for them to put it out.
Okay.
I remember the first time I ever heard the phrase "in perpetuity." Like, I guess it's yours now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you don't want it, then they can gladly have it, right?
Right. Well, exactly. It's like I wasn't going to do anything. It doesn't. I don't care. If Bloodshot can make a couple of bucks off of it, more power to them.
Well, I saw another interesting video, and it's more. I don't even know how to really describe this. You posted a live version of "Hunt Me Down" on your YouTube page, and live at the Doonanny Outsider Folk Art Festival.
Yeah, that place is fucking cool as shit.
There is the skinniest old hippie out in front of the stage.
He's the only one dancing too.
Yeah, he's the only one there, and he's doing the weirdest shit I've ever seen. I'm not entirely convinced it's not Chris Robinson from the Black Rose.
Maybe a time traveling one.
But he's like thin as a rail and just on another planet.
Yeah, well, that was a fun festival that's not going on anymore. I don't think. This folk artist named Butch Anthony. It's in the middle of Alabama. We played it a couple of years, and that was in the afternoon, and people were just kind of always playing and doing it. It was a really crazy deep South festival that I do well at places like that. You wouldn't know it from that video, but we did pretty good.
It looked like a blast. I mean, that guy was having fun. And I'll tell you what, if honestly, I'm kind of an ass like this. If that was me on stage, I probably would have done like this super long, like Leonard Skinner style jam just to see how long that guy would stay upright. I would just keep going and going until he fell.
It started to be a battle at a certain point. Just like, all right, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he looked like he was going to fall down many times.
He maybe have. I think I ended up talking to him after that, and he was a cool dude. The whole thing was there's a character everywhere you looked at this festival. It's pretty DIY. Lots of great art, lots of good like busking type kind of stuff going on.
Oh, cool.
And then I rolled in. I do a lot of different versions of this project, and that one it seemed right to do more of like a Southern rock thing that day.
And you know, you did another live. God, I'm trying to remember the name of the song. Some of your songs I've noticed sound different, markedly different live than they do on the albums. They sound a lot harder and heavier on the. Is that just because it's a live environment, or are they just evolving, or?
It's a little of both. I mean, I like to take advantage of whatever chemistry I have going on, depending on who I'm playing with at that point and what the venue's like. Because it's not often that I'm in a situation to where I can just rock out Molly Hatchet style, you know? And so this is what we're doing tonight. And to me, it goes back to always being slightly surprised when people, I'm not just being humble when I say I'm surprised that people like it, because I am really I'm just making the music I want to hear. Yeah. And that goes from the records to me just here right now with my guitar to playing at this folk art festival in the middle of Alabama. And who am I playing with? These two guys. They're good at doing kind of like a heavy kind of thing. Let's go for it. We're out in the red clay of Alabama in the middle of the day, drinking beer. Let's raise hell.
Very the red clay.
I try not to get too artsy about the whole thing. You know, it's kind of like, what do we want to do? Let's have fun. It's all rock and roll in the end.
Well, it was awesome. It's Ain't No Grave was the one I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing the fringe jacket and the cowboy hat.
Yeah,
that was cool as shit.
Yeah, because I heard the studio version and it kind of sounds like it could be played at Revival or something. And then you go into the live version and it's a lot more rocking. And so that's
just the guys I was playing with, and the gal. The drummer was Sam Henry from this band called the Wipers.
The Greg Sage and the Wipers?
Yeah, exactly them. He was drummer for them. And then the incredible bass player Jay Johnson, and then that's my ex-wife on organ, Audra Fleming from East Tennessee. And so like that, pretty much you've got like Steppenwolf. Yeah. This is how this is going to play out. And these are really random shows that are on video. A lot of those things when it comes down to like album release shows, which I've got a string of going. I'm usually picking players to where it's like to play the album, and it doesn't stray too much more until maybe the last 3 or 4 songs to where it's like, okay, let's let loose and party and let's do something. We're doing a cool version of St. James Infirmary right now that's based off of this guy Billy Lee Riley, who did I think UFOs and Rock and Roll. So it's a cool kind of like soul version of that. So you know, I try not to get too heady about the stuff. Because that's how I write the songs. It's real. It's fairly cerebral. And so once I'm done, I like just become a fan and just enjoy them.
Oh, okay.
And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
even if it's me solo, if you come to see a solo thing, it's it's going to sound a lot different because that's the chemistry. It's me and a big electric guitar alone on stage. They get moved around a little bit more, so it's all just a big sandbox, really.
Oh, that's awesome. So how did you get started with Drunken Prayer? I heard a story that it involved Tom Waits.
Yeah, that was kind of the genesis of it. Without, I guess I'm not name dropping them. You did.
I name dropped him. That's what I do here.
Right. My dad so I was born in California. My dad's still in North California, and he happens to live roughly in the same town Tom Waits.
Okay.
And I had left the East Coast. I was in Nashville for about a year. I wanted to leave Western North Carolina and just get out and see the rest of the country, and landed at my dad's farm in Northern California. Worked at a bookstore. And Tom Waits would just come in, and he and I developed we would just talk. I wouldn't really talk about music, mainly whatever book he was looking for. We talk about that. I remember I sold him a book on rats, and rats, the rats of New York. And sure enough, on the next album he put out, Real Gone, there's a song about rats on there. I was like, yes. I won't exactly take credit for that, but I did sell him the book.
Exactly. Yeah,
So anyway, I ended up having a really long conversation with him in the fish market. I was buying wine and he was buying fish, and we just started talking, and it finally did come around to music. And he talked about how he opened up for Charlie Rich in New York. Yeah, he's like, oh, the Silver Fox. Man. Well, so the first time as an aside, you haven't lived till you've heard your name come out of his mouth. It would almost make you throw up. He'd be like, hey, Morgan. Oh, you said my name.
That would be amazing because he sounds like he gargles gravel.
Yeah. And that's exactly how he talks. So we started talking, and we started getting into like how I was feeling restricted by the idea of genres and playing either this or either that, and the craft that it takes to just throw it all into the pot and have something come out that tastes good, that's cohesive.
Yeah.
And he turned me on at the same time to some really good gospel records. And it was kind of basically saying it's okay not to choose. Just do whatever you want. Just do whatever you want to do, and trust that because it's filtered through you, it'll be cohesive. Even though in my mind, a lot of it doesn't seem particularly cohesive at all. I'll talk to people who are like, oh yeah, I totally see a common theme, even though like they don't all have to be the same meter, or you don't have to be, like Ministry or something where it's all basically just like what you know.
Yeah.
Or like Horton Heat or something like that, to where it's like Ministry's a good one because they don't really have a great genre to put them in, but it always sounds exactly like Ministry to me.
Oh yeah. I swear.
Whereas my stuff, I feel like it's kind of like the story of the group of blind men and the elephant, where depending on which part you grab, you're going to think it's a completely different animal. That's how I see I do. Awesome. So I think it's a lot more kind of messed up than other people. Like, oh yeah, I see a thread there. So.
Oh man,
I guess he's right. And so that kind of opened it up for me to kind of like, okay, it's fine. And through that, that was my focus after that. And right after that, I moved to Portland, I'd started playing. The only gigs I could get were on Sunday afternoons. And I know a shitload of gospel songs. And so we're playing in like biker bars, but playing like Just a Closer Walk with Thee and all these things. And people loved it. They ate it up.
Awesome.
Some of it's because I've got a Southern accent and I'm from the South, and we're doing like these old Baptist hymns, but with a rock band basically. And like Drunken Prayer just kind of evolved out of that, playing gospel music in biker bars around the Northwest.
Oh, that's awesome. So
It's
when you're recording and you're touring, do you use the same? I know you said that when you're doing a record release show, you'll do stuff that's closer to the album. Are you touring with the same people that you record with?
No. I've got so I really like that chemistry of having different people to play with, and I've kind of engineered this thing to where I've got a group of folks in Austin, Texas, that I'll be playing with on this next tour.
Okay.
I've got and then they play with this guy Will Courtney, so they're pretty straightforward Americana alt country. It's going to be an easy transition with them because they're it's going to be 2 guitars, drums, bass. Then in Albuquerque, I'm going to pick up the song Rubble and Dust, the 3rd song on this new record.
You ask yourself, would you do it again? Let's not and say we did. Spare